Good evening. I'll call to order the City of West Bend Plan Commission meeting for October 6th, 2020. Notice that we do have a quorum with Commissioner Starl absent and excused. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I'll notice that we have about 10 items on our agenda. The first being approval of the regular Planning Commission meeting minutes of September 1st. Thank you. Motion by Fleischman, second by Newman. Any corrections or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And we'll move on to development proposals. A for the 2020 comprehensive plan, and item number 1, discussion and public hearing at 6 p.m. for a change in the recommended land use from commercial and single-family residential to institutional in the 2020 comprehensive plan for the city of West Bend for approximately 3.2 acres of land located at 1414 East Paradise Drive by the Department of Development. The applicant is Lou Hero of Hero Company out of Grafton. The agent is Anthony Chemmer of Paradise East Springs LLC here in West Bend. We'll open it up for the public hearing first. If anybody from the public would like to speak on this item, come on up and let us know what's on your mind. Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion to end the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. Hoogister and Dolnick. All those in favor of ending the public hearing, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then we'll open up for a presentation by Jim Renke, our Business and Development Planner. Jim.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight's request is for the change in land use for these this 3.2 acres. Back in June of this year, the Commission reviewed the request for the change of land use and zoning as a part of a concept that the agent has provided. The request is to change from the existing commercial and single-family use to an institutional use. The developer is proposing to do a senior living development, which would consist preliminarily of 20 assisted living units, 20 memory care units, and then 22 senior apartments. The area is surrounded by multifamily uses and open space to the north, single-family to the east, and commercial to the west, and agricultural uses to the south. This institutional land use could be considered as an appropriate alternative for the land uses, given the other uses within this area. If the comprehensive plan is endorsed by the Plan Commission, the developer would move forward with a rezoning request from the B5 Neighborhood Office and Business District and RS3 single-family residential use to an I1 institutional and public service district use. Public notice was published in the paper and posted at the library, and all owners within 200 feet were notified of the change, and staff received only general inquiries with no opposition to the land use change. If the Plan Commission finds the land use to be acceptable, we would ask that the Plan Commission endorse and approve the resolution acknowledging the change of this land use.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Jim? Seeing none, I'd be looking for approval of the amendment.
A motion to approve.
Thank you. By Schmidt and Newman. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And thank you to Hero Company. Moving on to B zoning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I forgot to mention he was on the phone for us as well. Moving on to B, zoning amendments. Number 1, ZA-20-003, a public hearing at 6:03 p.m. to rezone 3.2 acres of land located at 1414 East Paradise Drive, tax key number 1120.193.0002 and 1120.193.0008 from B5 Neighborhood Office and Service District and RS4 Single Family Residential District to I1 Institutional and Public Service District by Anthony Chemmer. Again, we have Lou Hero and Anthony Chemmer. So again, this is a public hearing. We'll open it up if anybody from the public would like to speak. If not, I'm looking for a motion to end the public hearing.
Are you at that meeting? So they approved it, right? So now,
So I have a motion by Dolnick. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Second by Hoodister. All those in favor of ending the public hearing, signal by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
all done, would you call me back? I'm on the other line.
Lou, you're talking, the plan commission can hear you.
He's just really excited to hear this news. All right. Well, we ended the public hearing. Is there anything else on this, Jim?
No, so this is just a follow-up from the endorsement of the comprehensive plan change. So the actual land or the zoning change would be from the B5 to the RS3 to the I1 institutional use. And again, this is just to facilitate that redevelopment of the property.
Sounds good. So we'd be looking for a recommendation to council on this zoning.
I'll recommend to city council.
Thank you.
Second it.
Second. Motion by Dolnick, second by Schmidt. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and we'll move on to number 2, ZA-20-006, a public hearing at 6 p.m. meeting for a request to rezone approximately .32 acre parcel of land located west of 501-511 Mulberry Drive East, tax key number 1119.104.0029 from RD2 two-family residential to RM4 multifamily residential district. We have the applicant as Mark Thatcher of MGJT Mulberry out of Brookfield, and agent is Mackenzie Berg of Quam Engineering here in West Bend. So again, this is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak, come on up. Yes, sir. And when you come on up, if you could just state your name and address for us.
Hi, my name is Rick Suhan, 515 Mulberry Drive East. My question is, I didn't know what the intentions were of Mark, if he's going to build another 4-family on the end there, or if he's going to try to improve the parking situation that's going on over there. I know that there's a lot of congestion in the streets, and I'm frequenting over there, so I was just curious what the idea was. So I wanted to come in and see how this common council thing works. Thank you.
I think Jim could answer that for you.
Sure. So we have 3 items on the agenda. The first part is the zoning for this property. Second part's going to be a certified survey map to change the land ownership there. And then the third one is to do a site plan. So he's proposing to do a parking lot to help alleviate some of the parking congestion that we have out there.
Sounds good. Anybody else who would like to speak for the public hearing? Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion to end.
Second.
Thank you. It's been motioned by Fleischman, second by Hoodister. All those in favor of ending the public hearing, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then we'll open it up to Jim for his presentation.
Thank you. So this request is to change the zoning from the RD2 two-family to the RM4 multifamily to make this all the same zoning for the property. This rezoning is to help facilitate for the redevelopment of that lot to incorporate it with that multifamily lot for the construction of a parking lot. Staff did send out notices within 200 feet. Staff didn't receive any inquiries or comments regarding the zoning change. So staff would recommend approval of the zoning from the RD2 to the RM4.
Sounds good. Any questions for Jim? Otherwise, we're looking for a recommendation to council.
I'll make a motion to recommend it to the city council.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Hoodister, second by Dolnick. If there's no other comments or questions, then all those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And moving on to certified survey maps, item number 1, CSM-20-012, one lot certified survey map to combine 2 existing lots at 501-511 Mulberry Drive East by Mark Thatcher, and we have Thatcher and Berg as the applicant and agent once again. Any other comments, Jim?
No, this is again just to combine it. So we're taking the 0.3 acres and the 0.7 to make it a 1.05 acre parcel. So we can do the so the Plan Commission can consider the parking lot addition. So staff would recommend approval with the 2 conditions that we had listed.
Sounds good. So we'll be looking for a motion to approve the CSM. All right. I have Newman and Fleischman. If there's no other comments or questions, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then moving on to site plans. Number 1, SP-20-014, site plan for a parking lot located on the west side of 501, 511 Mulberry Drive East by Mike Thatcher with Thatcher and Berg once again. Nothing else?
Just to say that it's basically, it's a 10 parking stall site plan. The only nuance with this one is that we're asking the Plan Commission to consider an exception for the front yard setback from 10 feet to 5 feet. Staff feels that this is warranted just because this is a very difficult site and with the grades in there. So we feel that it is appropriate to move that parking lot a little bit closer to the right of way. We are still getting parking lot screening and everything for landscaping, but staff did feel that it was warranted to do that exception. Stormwater plans were submitted and being reviewed, and the parking lot itself does comply with the design standards that the city has for parking lots.
Sounds great. So we're looking for a motion to approve the site plan.
Motion to approve the site plan with the recommendations given.
Second.
Thank you, Hoodster and Gannon. Any questions for Jim? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 2. Under site plans, SP-20-018, Barton Sitco exterior alterations at 1516 North Main Street by Scott Sedonikow of Wisconsin Convenience Store Management. The applicant is Scott of Convenience Store Management, and the agent is Adam Hurdle of American Architectural Group here in West Bend. Jim?
Thank you. So this site plan is for building alterations only. We're not proposing any other site alterations for the development. The property is zoned B3, Neighborhood Business District. So the architectural plans that were provided in your packet show the changes that are being proposed. The existing siding on the south and west sides of the building are going to remain and just be repaired. The north and east walls will be updated with them replacing the siding with a Bailey's Harbor Dusk fieldstone veneer. And the windows and doors themselves would also be replaced, changing the appearance of the building. The roof over the entrance will be modified, and they will also be re-roofing that with a tan-colored steel roof. Staff also noted that the existing sign on the building will be relocated to the gable end on the east side of the building. Staff would recommend approval of the site plan as it is presented.
Thank you. And so we're looking for a motion to approve the site plan. Thank you. Motion by Dolnick, second by Fleischman. Any questions for Jim?
I would like to abstain from the next 2 line items as it relates to an ongoing business relationship with the agent. So.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none then, all of those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. It'll be nice to see a refreshing look up there in Barton. And moving on to number 3, SP-20-017, site plan for 120 units, Trails Edge Apartments, located on the west side of South Forest Avenue and south of East Water Street by David Decker of Trails Edge WB. The applicant is David Decker. The agent is Adam Hurdle, again of American Architectural Group. Jim, take it away.
Thanks. This site plan is for a 3-story, 120-unit apartment complex located south of the new hotel and office building on the west side of Forest Avenue. This development would benefit our tax increment district number 12. The 4.4-acre site is zoned MXD, Mixed Use District, and the proposal complies with the requirements of that zoning district. The site plan does not show an exterior screened refuse area, so that would require the refuse receptacles to be placed in the building, or if they're not, if they do not want to put them in the building, we would require that a refuse area be provided in a revised plan. The site itself has 2 access points onto South Forest Avenue. The site plan identifies an 108 parking stall with 4 barrier frees for surface parking, and an additional 124 underground or in-building parking stalls are provided for the site. The stormwater management plan is required for the development and has been submitted and is under review by the engineering department. The site grades have been generally designed to drain to the southeast corner of the site, where it's collected in storm sewer system and then discharged into our public storm sewer system. Grading and site improvements are proposed on the northern edge of our flood fringe overlay district on the south side of the site. So prior to any land disturbing activities for that area, a conditional use permit would be required for the filling and construction of those improvements. The site itself has undergone environmental remediation, and a soil management plan was approved by the DNR, and that management plan will need to be adhered to as part of the construction of the project. The site lighting for the development will just consist of LED lighting for the parking lot areas. The architectural building elevations and the building materials will consist of a quarry gray smooth vertical smart siding, along with accents of red siding, and then a tundra gray lap siding will also be used for the upper portions of the building. The first floor building will have obsidian smooth utility brick finish, and then the underground parking itself would use a precast concrete wall for that. Staff would recommend approval of the site plan with the listed conditions in the staff memo.
Sounds good. I will open it up for a motion first to approve the site plan.
Motion to approve with the conditions specified.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Hoodister, second by Newman. Is there any questions from the commission?
I will be abstaining again.
Sounds good. If there's no further questions or comments, then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the site plan, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I do want to acknowledge a big thank you to Trails Edge. Thank you to American and former Mayor Stonica, who was here in the audience, city staff, everybody who just worked really hard to make this thing happen. It's always great to see strong investment here in West Bend. So thank you. We'll move on to E, under concept plans, number 1. CP-20-001 concept plan discussion for a 181 unit mixed use multifamily and commercial development on approximately 3 acres of land located at the northeast corner of North Main Street and West Washington by Kyle Stringens of HKS Holdings LLC, and the applicant is the same. Jim.
Thank you. So HKS Holdings is proposing to acquire the property just north of Washington Street on the east side of Maine. As part of the development, they are proposing to do 2 multi-story buildings, one on either side of the old vacated Franklin Street. So the southern building, which is building 1, is a 4-unit mixed-use building over with in-building parking. The first floor would contain 7 residential units and approximately 6,400 square feet of commercial space. The other remaining floors will each contain 13 units of dwelling units for each floor. This would bring a total of 46 units in that building. The building is also designed to have 46 in-building parking stalls, and an additional 8 parking stalls are provided on the exterior of the building. Building number 2 is the northern building. Again, this is a 4-story U-shaped structure. It does have parking in the basement, and they also have some basement level apartments that have direct access to the Riverwalk on the east edge. They're also proposing a 2-story townhome dwelling, which would be sandwiched in between the the north and south ends of that building, and would bring the scale down to a personable street scale facade for that building. In between the two ends, there's also a courtyard that will be provided for the use of the tenants. Building number 2 would be approximately 126 dwelling units, and then an additional 9 units in the townhome style. Again, there would be in-building or underground parking with 160 stalls being proposed, or I should say 151 stalls being proposed, and another additional 9 stalls on the outside of the structure. This building would be in comparable scale to the auxiliary court apartments and also the Regency apartments. The 181 dwelling units on the 3 acres has a density that's slightly above the MXD, but under the MXD zoning. But as a part of the MXD zoning, the commission may modify that density requirements consistent with good site planning and development. Vehicle access for this development would be through the former Franklin Street. And given the proximity of the shared entrance and the relativity to Main Street in Washington, a traffic impact analysis would be required as part of the development process. In staff's opinion, the development proposal would extend high-density downtown-style development north of 33 or Washington Street, fostering the sense of the connectivity with the downtown and this portion of the area. The mass and the scale is not out of character given the past uses of the site, the high visibility, and the prominence and the location warranted of the mixed use and the scale of the development. The developer is requesting an endorsement of the development concept by the Plan Commission and would appreciate any suggestions for further improvements on the design.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jim. As stated, we don't need an official motion, but we'll open it up for any questions, thoughts, or ideas. If not, I'll take a nod of heads if we're all excited. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Dolnick, go ahead.
I had a question for Jim about the parking that's being provided. There's no mention that that they're looking for an exception. On the other hand, zoning is mixed use, so maybe the parking guidance doesn't apply. I guess you'll have to tell me what. Where I'm coming from is building number 1 would have 46 dwelling units, a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, but only have 48 parking stalls, plus the 8 exterior. And then the same kind of thing is true with building 2, comparing the number of parking that's being provided against the number of units. Are they within code based upon the number of units?
Sure. So under MXD, we don't have a parking requirement. So with MXD, we rely on street parking and whatever they feel the need is for the parking for their development. So the developer has looked at what they feel the need would be for parking and feels the number of stalls that they have would be sufficient for their development. So we don't have a specific, it's not like 2.5 stalls per unit like we have for a regular multifamily that we have. With it being MXD, we don't have a set requirement for that.
That's what I figured. So is the theory that the market will determine if it will work because people will be told, renters will be told, hey, you're only going to get 1 space possibly?
Yeah, it would be based
That's
on
the theory?
what they feel they need for their market, for their parking requirements.
And I don't know if Max was going to say anything about the mid-block crossing and other things, or if we're just going to wait for the TIA. I had a concern about that, and I also have a huge concern about getting in and out of there via Franklin. but I'll defer to Max.
Yes, so we talked with the traffic engineer who's working with the developer on this site. We did comment on the proposed mid-block crossing as well as the DOT. We don't think it's a good idea. However, we were told that the developer will still go through the exercise of looking at that option and I guess to convince themselves that it's not a good idea. But pretty much DOT and the city have said that it's not going to happen.
So it looks like we have somebody up here who would like to speak on one of those items.
Yes, hi, I'm Joe Klein, one of the principals at HKS Holdings.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you for having me. I just wanted to comment on the parking. Yes, it is market driven. We're doing the market studies right now. We think with a project this close and this much walkability to some of the amenities that downtown West Bend has, you might not get your 2.5 to 1 parking ratio like you might in other parts of the city. So at a 1-to-1, a 1-to-2 parking ratio, we do have more than 50% of the units are probably going to be one bedroom apartments. So we think that the market will dictate how much parking we need, and we're analyzing that right now. And I'm also here to answer any other questions that the commission might have.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions?
First,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think looks like it's going to be an amazing addition to downtown, even though it's not technically downtown. But the one thing I really am kind of excited about, especially, is Building 1, getting rid of that island that's been an eyesore for how many years? That, we've tried to do something with and never really had a reason to do anything with it or a way to do anything with it. So I think this is going to come together very nicely for the downtown.
Thank you. Any other comments? Otherwise, Jim, what does it look like for a timeline from here?
So we're still working with the developer, Mark. Mark might be able to help me, or Jay, a little bit more with timing. But the next step would be, if, depending on what we may need to do, some zoning changes with the commercial on that south end, maybe changing that to MXD. We'd work with that. Doesn't have to, but we'll discuss that with the developer if they want to proceed with that. And then we would also work with probably a developer's agreement, and then also site design and proposals for that.
Sounds good.
The end result of this is we're looking for a spring 21
Okay.
completion for the start of this project.
Overall, it's just been really exciting to see growth in our city overall, but especially in this sector. I'll jump off of Alderman Hoochester. When you look at that area now and just imagine what it can be, that's pretty exciting to see these sketches and see how much our city can come alive in that sector. So I really appreciate you taking your time and wanting to invest here in West Bend.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say I agree with you. I'm very excited about the project. It looks amazing, and I do, in concept, accept it and think that it looks great. I do still have concerns though about that traffic, about the parking and the density, and even a little bit of the height. So.
One thing that I don't think Jim mentioned, that we are actually going to do a ramp on the north side of the building, the bigger building. So Jim, I don't know if that was in the proposal, but we don't think that the Franklin Street egress will be able to serve 181 units. So we are talking to the neighbor to the north, or we're also exploring if we can't get the neighbor to the north to give us an easement, shrinking the building a little bit, to the south by 20 feet. To being able to get a ramp on the north side of our building that will service, most of the parkers in the larger building.
Sounds good. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we have good feedback and you got your direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll move on to number 2, CP-20-002, concept plan discussion for approximately 15.1 acres parcel of land located at 285 Sand Drive for a multifamily and senior housing development by Kevin Parrish of Quam Engineering. The applicant is JGM Enterprises, John Meyer, and agent is Kevin Parrish of Quam. Jim.
Thank you. So back in July of this year, the Plan Commission reviewed a request for consideration of land use change from the industrial land use to a multifamily land use. The project was postponed for further discussion. The developer has actually revised some plans and resubmitted a request to us and provided a concept plan depicting the proposal that they would like to do as a senior housing and multifamily development. The concept plan has been submitted, and the potential buyer or developer is looking at constructing 108 multifamily dwelling units. And they're also proposing, which would consist of 2 30-unit buildings with in-building parking, and 6 8-unit buildings, again, also containing in-building parking, along with the needed parking areas for that development. They're also proposing a second development, which would be a senior living development, and that would consist of one large building of 66 units for assisted living, 29 units for memory care, and they're also proposing 4 4-unit buildings for independent senior living. The development proposal also would include a clubhouse that would be within the senior living development, and that would be utilized for both the senior living and for the multifamily development. Staff has reviewed the proposal, and we had a couple of concerns pertaining to the layout, especially with the 30-unit buildings and the proximity to the single-family use. There is a berm that has been constructed as part of the original subdivision for that single family. But still, even with the berm there, staff does have some concern with the proximity of that building in relationship to the property line and the view sheds. And another concern that we did have was the connectivity between the developments, and then also with the road connections, and only having one driveway connection for each development to access them separately. So since there would be common elements that were being shared between this development with the clubhouse, stormwater, access, and what have you, staff would recommend that we also have a planned unit development overlay district, a PUD, as a part of the approval process to incorporate this with the shared facilities that are being proposed. The 2 proposed uses would require a land use and a zoning change. The land use is currently industrial, so the Plan Commission would have to approve a comprehensive plan change to change from the industrial land use to a multifamily and institutional land use. With that being changed, we'd also need to have a zoning change to affix the appropriate zoning for the uses that we have out in that area. So the RM4 multifamily would be requested for the multifamily portion, and the I1 institutional zoning for the senior living. And then again, we would ask that a PUD overlay be put over both of these for the shared elements and for also the 2 different uses on the institutional, for the institutional use and the independent living. So for land uses in the area, this area is surrounded by single family to the east, south, and the northeast, industrial to the due north, and institutional uses to the northeast and the southwest. The trail, the Eisenbahn Trail, is a separation between the uses to the west, and then the future Vine Street right-of-way is also a separation for the uses to the south. If the Plan Commission would find the proposal to be acceptable for the land use, we would ask that the Plan Commission set a public hearing for December 1st of 2020 to hear the comments and concerns pertaining to the land use change. And at the same meeting, they may have a second hearing for the actual base zoning for the going from the heavy industrial to the RM4 multifamily residential and the I1 institutional use.
So just to clarify, you're looking at motions to set both those public hearings by December, or?
Yeah, the
Okay.
the public hearing would be for December 1st would be for the land use. We're required to have a minimum of a 30-day notification for that. Unfortunately, due to the timing, we wouldn't be able to make it, for the November meeting, so we have to push it to December.
Okay. I have a couple questions myself, but first I'll look for a motion to set those public hearings. There a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion to set the public hearing by Dolnick and Hoogister. I'll open it up for discussion. You brought it up, Jim, but one of the concerns I had was about that connectivity. So is the applicant open to fixing that? I mean, it seems like there's a pretty opportune spot up there on the northwest side where it divides that they could connect. Is that their intention, or what step are they at?
Yeah, we haven't, we've expressed the concerns that we did have with that. We haven't seen anything revised yet.
Okay.
They were open to making modifications to things to help make the development work and move forward. But at this time, we haven't seen any changes to anything at this moment.
Okay. And my other question is, I know that there was some feedback from neighbors who live along there. Did they end up holding that public get-together to gauge their perspectives?
Yes,
And how'd
so
that go?
the developer did hold a neighborhood meeting last Friday. And a few members from the neighborhood did show up to the meeting, express their concerns to the developer for what they had regarding traffic. Again, the relationship with the building layouts, with especially the 30 unit buildings, and they had other concerns with screening and what have you also.
Okay. Well, good to see them making that effort. I'll open it up to Commissioner Dolnick.
Thanks, Mayor. And this is not only my aldermanic district, but I live down the street, so I have a handle on this. It's from the neighbor's perspective, that is, the people who live adjacent to this, it's essential that those buildings and the driveway be flipped to move those buildings further away from their backyards. The building heights, there's nothing we can do about, but at least if those buildings are moved, I'm planning estimated that would be about 80 feet, I think you said, Mark. If they were flipped, that would move them 80 feet further away from where they are now. That would move the driveway and parking closer, but that's at a lower level. Their concern is that the tops of those buildings are going to be intrusive to their properties. So it's essential that be done if this is going to go anywhere. Traffic was also mentioned by a lot of the people who live on Sand Drive. I'm told I was going to recommend a traffic impact analysis, but the city engineer advises me that has already been made known to the developer. So a TIA would be done. Is that correct, Max?
So when we review the concept plan at staff level, we did mention that we will need to look at the trip generation to see how many trips come through those driveways. And basically, we expect that the number of trips that we'll see will trigger the requirement for traffic impact analysis. I had some other little questions on the site distance there, and also trying to see if there was any impact on the intersection at Decorah and Indiana and Eastern. So yes, for this type of development, most likely we'll have a traffic impact analysis tied to it.
And I think that would, I think that's important for the residents along Sand Drive, because although Sand is a collector street, there's a great deal of concern about traffic that this would be generated, and the TIA would get that down scientifically and give everybody an idea about what could transpire there.
Sounds good. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question for Max.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would that include the intersection of Sand and River Road also?
Yes, we would ask them to look at that as well.
Okay. Anything else? Sorry, it looks like we got comments back there. Come on up. Just let us know who you are.
Sure. Kevin Parrish with Quam Engineering. And
Brendan Sullivan with Manhattan Development Group.
Thank you.
so we just wanted to address a couple items. The connectivity is fine. We can make that connect on the northwest side as you requested. The big issue, I guess, for the developer is the 30 units. Just topographically, they lay out the best there, and I understand the issues with the residents behind there. But the top floor of the building will be about 15 feet exposed from the top of the berm. The garage and apartment will be sunken down below the berm. And we were providing landscaping on that berm to shield and screen the building, so.
Kevin, the berm is not your property, though.
Right, it's not.
No, but I just want to add to this. The top of that berm's about 950, so there will be about 15 feet of the building that will be above that, which is smaller really than a one-story building. And we talked about putting berming there. If we put those buildings further to the, what direction is this would be doing?
West.
To the west, it would really cram sort of, from a density perspective, the building's pretty close to the assisted site next to it and takes away, puts a road in front of the building instead of maybe some beautiful landscaping behind it. So we're, when we discussed this last week, I know I was on a call with you. It sounded like this berming would be something that would be acceptable with the neighbors, and you had just mentioned that that would be something that would prohibit us from doing this. So we're hoping to get an understanding here, because that really affects our traffic flow in the way this is designed right now.
Sounds good. Are there any other questions or comments for these guys, or do you have anything else?
No, I think that's.
Okay.
it.
So again,
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Gentlemen.
So we do have a motion second to set.
This gentleman.
I'm sorry. Just to be clear, ma'am, if you're a resident, this isn't the public hearing yet, so we're making a motion to set the public hearing, and that would be the appropriate time for you to come and voice.
It was just information about the meeting that we had on Friday.
I mean, I can allow it because I asked that question too, so you can go ahead and share that for us. You can just state your name.
My name is Maureen Giacomini. I live at 204 Hargrove Place. I back right up. My home is on the other side of the trail. We were told in the meeting Friday when this was presented that there would be a 80% senior, 20% multi-family. The reason that I am wondering about this, because according to this, we have 66 assisted living, 29 memory care units, and tonight they just approved 20 assisted living, 20 memory care, and 22 apartments within a mile of there. So my question is there going to be a need for that many? Or if that doesn't take place because they can't fill those spots, does then it just revert to a multifamily?
Well, I think need would be based on market, but I think Jim could probably answer the latter part to that question. What would happen, let's say, if they can't market it the way that they want?
Well, if it's set up, depending, the I-1 institutional stuff that we have there for the 66 assisted living, the memory care, and the independent living, that's all senior is I-1. So you wouldn't be able to change any of that to any kind of market rate type apartments because the zoning isn't set up for that. So the other portion on that, for the 230s and the 6-8 units, that's multifamily. So however, they set that up, unless we have, as part of, the developer's agreement and, the zoning amendment and whatever, or covenants, that's what would drive the stuff on the multifamily portion on that south and east side.
Sorry. He turned up.
We could use some smooth jazz right now. All right. Do you have anything else, Jim?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Dolnick?
I have to compose myself after that interlude there. Maureen's question reminded me about something. Brendan, at the neighborhood meeting, you had mentioned that you were willing to consider an age restriction on the multifamily. And in order to make that happen, that could involve some rezoning to affect the parking. Because if you put an age restriction, then we have an exception, we can make an exception on how many parking spaces are provided. That would shrink your parking lots. Are you still willing to pursue that?
I believe, and Kevin, you can answer this, I believe we're set up for age restriction now because it reduced the amount of parking that we have. And keep in mind, one of the things in the traffic study, which of course we'll get into, is being, a majority of this being senior, there's a lot less a need for vehicular traffic. Most of these people are in-house, as you know. So I just wanted to make it clear that's our intention, was not to divide this site up. At first we thought we might do just market rate apartments, but in talking with our group on the assisted side, we thought it best to just keep this as an age restricted, and that's our intention.
That's
Less parking spots per unit is what's required.
Right. Now, I'm referring to the 230 units. Is that what you're referring to as well?
That's correct.
Okay. And I also was going to ask, since you're up there, the assisted, on the other side, the assisted unit building, is that one story?
No, that'll be multiple stories, likely two.
It would be?
Yes, or three in at least one area.
Oh, okay. That's
sort of tucked against the woods on the western end.
That's fine. I was just surprised because I thought usually those places are single, but apparently not.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And and I talked a little bit with Kevin when we walked away from here. Really, we had talked, you had asked about moving those buildings to the other side. It really does sort of affect what those buildings look over. They'll look over buildings on one side and they'll look over a driveway on the other. So this is quite impactful to us if the request is to move that road. It really changes our plan significantly.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's what I was going to ask. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So again, the motion is to set a public hearing. That's time if there's any from the public who would like to speak. That'll be that December meeting that we'll be having. So we have a motion and second. If there's no other comments or questions, then all those in favor of setting the public hearing, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And being no further business before the Planning Commission, I'll adjourn by the call of the chair. Have a great night.